Very good evening, friends. Meeting again after a long break in the session of Stuart Close Philosophy. And we were discussing regarding the chapter, the Homoeopathic Posology. Many aspects of Homoeopathic Posology already we have discussed. We have learned regarding the what is the difference between allopathic posology and homeopathic posology. Then we have discussed how to select the dose, on which factors the dose is dependent. There are 5 points which he has highlighted. Then he has explained each and every point regarding it, right from susceptibility to the nature of disease. And later, after explaining that, in last part which we have discussed, where he has explained the importance of intercurrent remedies and how they should be used, he has used the example of lauroceraceus, the sulfur, then the thuja, then carbovage, and at the same time the nozodes, depending upon the case, the sorinum, the medorinum, cipilinum, tuberculinum, carcinosis. These nozodes can be used as an intercurrent remedies in between if the case becomes fixed or if the case never have a progress after certain level. And that also we have discussed, and he has explained that the way we select the remedy by the process of individualization, the same is true while selecting the potency, that is the individualization is needed. So there is no fixed rule and fixed potency for certain age. It depends upon situation, it depends upon all those factors, and those we have discussed. One part of it is finished, but another part is very important, that whether to repeat or not to repeat, how much doses we should give, what is the importance of repetition, and what are the problems which can be developed because of repetition. So the question of repetition develops, and that's why he highlights that also in this chapter. And he, on page number 202 in my book, he starts over there regarding the repetition of doses. It remained to speak of one more important matter connected with the general subject of homeopathic posology, that is the repetition of the dose. The management of the remedy in regard to the potency and doses is almost as important as the selection of the remedy itself. The selection of the remedy can hardly be said to be finished until the potency and doses have been decided upon. These three factors, remedy, potency, and dosage, are necessarily involved in the operation of prescribing. So, whenever you are prescribing homeopathically, three important points what one needs is: first is finding it out perfect simillimum, then second is exact dose, that is the potency, and third repetition. Not one of them is a matter of indifference, or not one of them can be disregarded. So everything is very important in order to get a success or result with the homeopathic remedy. So all those 3 points plays very vital role. The first question which confronts means confusion, sambhramatakne. The first question which confronts us is whether to give one dose or repeated doses. The second question is, if we give one dose, when shall we repeat? So first question is whether to repeat or not to repeat. If you want to repeat, how much time we shall repeat. And third, if we give repeated doses, how often shall we repeat the doses and when shall we stop giving the dosing? So three important points which comes whenever the question of repetition comes. So this is always there. The dilemma is always there with every student as well as every practitioner. And thorough answer he has given over there. What he says, many experts prescribers begin the treatment of practically all cases by giving single dose of the indicated remedy and awaiting the reaction. This is an almost ideal method for expert prescriber. Of course, we will expect to become expert prescribers and will therefore accept that as our ideal. So he explains that there is method commonly used that give one dose and wait. Even though it looks ideal, but many times there is always a question from patient's point of view is that they want very early result. Then what to do? Even Hahnemann have got the same problem in his mind when he has written the fifth edition. He has written that give the single dose and wait. But he has changed his view from fifth to sixth edition. He has changed and he came with the repetition of the doses, which is called as a plussing technique. And as well as he has utilized one more method, which is called to be a 50 millisiemens scale, exactly absolutely new in the sixth edition of Organ of Medicine. And that's why these questions should be very clear in our mind. Hahnemann's usual teaching, the outcome of his long and rich experience was to give single dose and await its full reaction. The wisdom of this teaching has been amply confirmed since his day by many of his followers. The duration of action of the remedy which acts and no other counts varies, of course, with the nature and rate of progress of the disease. So what he says, this answer, the sentence is very important. The duration of action of the remedy which acts varies, of course, with nature and rate of progress of disease. So if you would have given selected lycopodium for the patient and you would have given lycopodium 30, you don't know exactly how much time the remedy will going to act, because it depends upon the person, it depends upon susceptibility of the person, it depends upon nature of the disease, it depends upon how the disease progresses. There are a number of factors which you have to take into consideration. It is not fixed that lycopodium will act 40 days only. In a disease of such a violence and rapid tendency towards the death as cholera, for example, the action of indicated remedy might be exhausted in 5 or 10 minutes and another dose be required at the end of that time. In a slowly progressing chronic disease like tuberculosis, the action of the dose of the curative remedy might continue for 2 or 3 months. Between these two extremes are all degrees of variation. So he has given again a very nice example. If there is an acute disease, even though acute totality, susceptibility is high, but the dose action is getting vanished very early. If the patient's disease is toxic like cholera, then it needs repetition if you would have selected an acute remedy like camphor. But exactly opposite state can be possible if there is a tuberculosis which is slowly developing disease, chronic disease. In such types of cases, it takes long time for homeopathic remedy to act. It works. So you don't have to make a fuss over there by giving or repeating the medicine early. It creates the problem. It troubles the patient. It causes many times, sometimes homeopathic aggravation, sometimes if remedy is wrong, maybe it can lead to the medicinal aggravation also. So for each and every case is variable. You have to decide depending upon what disease you are treating, whether you are dealing with acutes, whether you are dealing with chronics, what medicine you are using, what's the action of the medicine, with what the pace of the remedy. Everything you have to take into consideration, and then you have to decide whether to repeat or not to repeat. The only rule which can be laid down with safety is to repeat the dose only when improvement ceases. Very important and very specific. Underline it, already it is given in italics. Whenever the improvement is started, better to stop the remedy and give the placebo. It is a better solution, simple thing. To allow a dose or a remedy to act as long as the improvement produced by it is sustained in good practice, but to attempt to fix arbitrary limits to the action of medicine, as some have done, is contrary to experience. So, here, if you are damn sure that remedy has acted, it has produced certain basic general features which have improved, then there is no question of repeating it anymore. Otherwise, it will lead towards proving, and we don't want to prove. So, it is always better to give the placebo at that time and wait for the action gets exhausted. This is the better method to be utilized. Young practitioners and many old ones too, for that matter, give too many doses, repeat too frequently, change the remedies too often. They give no time for reaction. they get doubtful or hurried or careless, and presently they get rattled if the case is serious. Then it is all up with them until or unless they come to their senses and correct their mistakes. Sometimes such mistakes cannot be corrected and patient pays the penalty with his life. It pays to be careful and go slow in the beginning. Then there will be then there will not be so many mistakes to correct. We should examine our case carefully and systematically. Select our first remedy and potency with care. Give our first dose if the single dose is decided upon, and then watch the result. If the remedy and dose are right, there will be no results. There will be results. We need have no doubt on that score. The indicated remedy and potency, even in a single dose, cannot be given without some result, and the result must be good. Generally speaking, it may be taken for granted that if there is no perceptible result after reasonable time, deciding upon nature of the case, either the remedy or potency was wrong. It's clearly mentioning about the doses and repetition of doses. What he says, if you are damn sure regarding the remedy, give the dose in whatever the potency you have selected, whether it is 1 m, whether it is 200, whether it is 10 m, depends. And give one dose and wait and see the results. The patient should react. And that is the thing. If you are damn sure about the remedy, patient should react to that dose if your remedy and potency is correct. If there is no reaction on the part of patient, then definitely either your remedy is wrong or either your potency is wrong. So you have to be very watchful while making a second prescription. So one must know all those things, and he is very clearly mentioning about all those things over there. One of the most difficult things is to learn to wait. Underline. He has given again it in italics, and that is what is called as patience. We must develop patience in us to wait and see what happens. Three things are necessary. Number one is wisdom, number two is courage, and number three is patience. These are three important entities while making the second prescription. This is the MCQ, which are three things explained by Stuart Close necessary for second prescription. The first is wisdom, second is courage, and third is patience. What is wisdom? Wisdom means akal, means intellect. Intellect is the faculty of brain which with the help of logic and memory comes to a deduction. One must utilize the wisdom. That is very important. To reach to the right potency, to reach to the right remedy, to reach to the proper repetition, wisdom is very, very important entity. Second important comes is the courage. Courage to handle difficult cases. Courage to handle a pathological cases. Courage to handle acute states with the help of homeopathy. So wisdom, then the courage, and third is most important thing is patience. You must be able to look towards those things. Very important point that if they are there, then you can get a very good success. Strong doses and frequent repetition will not avail if the remedy is not right. So you give a strong doses, means larger material doses, you repeat it, it will not going to work if your remedy is wrong. So basic criteria is that your remedy should be very perfect. That is more important. In paragraph 245, Hahnemann gives this general rule. Perceptible and continued progress of improvement is an acute or chronic disease. It's a condition which, as long as it lasts, invariably counterindicates the repetition of any medicine whatever, because the beneficial effect which the medicine continues to exert is rapidly approaching its perfection. Under these circumstances, every new dose of the medicine would disturb the process of recovery. So, see, Hahnemann have very clearly mentioned in aphorism number 245 regarding the repetition. If you are damn sure about the remedy, and after giving that remedy, the progress, there is a continuous progress. If it is developing very nicely, progress is there, improvement is there, the generals are vanishing, particulars are gradually decreasing, and it means your remedy is perfect. Then there is no question of repeating the same remedy again and again. Otherwise, it will spoil the case, it will disturb the progress of recovery. So one must be cautious while repeating the doses in such types of cases once the improvement has begun. And that is a general rule which Hahnemann have explained, and this is useful. Second rule, what he says in the paragraph number 246, in long note to the paragraph 246, however, which should be carefully studied, Hahnemann qualifies this statement and indicates the circumstances under which it is advisable to repeat doses of the same remedy using the action of sulfur in chronic diseases as an illustration. For this, you have to open your books, 6th edition of Organ of Medicine, open the paragraph number 246, and you have to read whole footnote. And then he explains how to utilize sulfur if it has been needed in repeated doses. It varies from individual to individual, and he has explained the examples related with regarding it as an illustration over there. In paragraphs 247 and 248, Hahnemann says, these periods, marked by the repetition of doses, are always to be determined by more or less acute course of disease and by nature of the remedy employed. So, 2 points important which one must think is the first is the acute course of the disease, and second point which he highlights over there, the what is the nature of remedy employed. Both things are important. So, whether you are giving a remedy for which disease, whether you are dealing with acute, whether you are dealing with chronic. If you are dealing with acute, then what is the pace, then what is the state of the person, everything you have to take into consideration. That is one part on the basis of which you are going to look towards the dose and repetition. And second point is the nature of remedy. It varies. Some remedies act very strongly. For example, LMC-PA, very strongly it acts. It acts even in crude form on the human being. If it is so, then those remedies never requires to be repeated, or those remedies are not needed in very high potency. They even 30 or 200 are sufficient for LMC-PA to act. But there are certain remedies. For example, the inert remedies in crude form, for example, lycopodium or metals, which in crude form never acts or produce any result. Those remedies, in many times, you have to go unrepeated till the susceptibility gets aroused. So these things one must know. So it depends upon what remedy you are using. That is also one part you have to take into consideration. The dose of the same medicine is to be repeated several times if necessary, but only until recovery ensues and or until the remedy ceases to produce improvement. At that period, the remainder of the disease, having suffered a change in its group of symptoms, requires another homeopathic medicine. So, very clear cut understanding regarding the repetition he mentions over there. There are certain remedies which never acts with single dose, which you have to repeat. And when you have to repeat them, then you have to repeat till the recovery starts. And once recovery starts, then you have to keep your hands off. Then there is no more repetition requires. Then you have to go on watching and finding it out what is happening. If the case is progressing toward the cure, then you have to wait and wait, keep the patience. If patient state has changed, that patient's complaints have disappeared, it is going in right direction from center to periphery, but now it has settled over periphery and it is no more getting covered. If it is not getting covered at that specific time, then you have to select another remedy depending upon the state of the person, and you have to choose new homeopathic remedy for that. Study also the paragraphs 249 to 252, and this is very important. These are very important hints which have been mentioned by Close regarding the 6th edition of Organ of Medicine. The single dose of the indicated remedy repeated whenever improvement ceases, as long as new or changed symptoms do not indicate change of remedy, is adapted to all cases, but especially to the chronic cases and to such acute cases as can be seen frequently and watched closely. The nature and progress of the disease will determine, under this rule, how often the dose to be repeated. Cases may be present. The cases may present themselves, however, which cannot be watched as closely as we would like. We may not be able to visit the patient frequently, nor remain with him long enough to observe the full period of remedial action. In such cases, it is permissible and indeed necessary to order repetition of doses at stated intervals of 1 or 2 or 3 hours until improvement is felt and or seen, or perhaps until to our next visit. In such cases, it is well to direct that medicine to be stopped as soon as the patient is better, giving some simple instruction to the nurse to what constitutes a reliable sign of improvement and according to the nature of case. So you have to tell to the patient that you give the remedy, repeat it, and you have to tell once you start feeling better, and you have to explain what exactly mean by the better. And once you start getting better, stop that remedy and just give the another remedy and which contains placebo. This is the way. This is what you have to explain to the patient or to the nurse or to the attendant, so that as soon as the recovery starts, the stop the medicine. That is a good important indication. If it is acute remedy, you can wait for the second visit of the patient, and the next visit you can stop the remedy. That also he has mentioned. And to conclude that part, he explains over there, if the patient is so gravely ill as to require the doses at an intervals of less than 1 hour, it is the physician's duty to remain with the patient and judge of his condition and progress for himself, unless he is absolutely sure of the remedy and is in telephonic communication with the case. And then he says, if patient needs a very frequent repetition, then physician should sit over there, observe the patient's condition after repeating doses, and he has to decide whether to repeat or whether not to repeat, whether to give the same remedy or whether to change the plan of the treatment, depending upon the state of the person. So this is related with the repetition of the doses, which he has mentioned over there very thoroughly, and simple language he has mentioned. Unless once you get the action of the remedy, then it is need to stop and give the placebo. So repeat till the action is developed, and once action is developed, wait for and keep the patient. So this is another important topic which we have finished from the homeopathic posology chapter. The next point is again important, that is effect of the remedy. So what has happened to the patient after giving the remedy? It is as good as remedy reactions as explained by Stuart Close from the Hahnemannian point of view, from the 6th edition of Organ of Medicine, which we will learn in tomorrow's session. So that's what regarding the homeopathic posology and repetition of doses we have finished today. So thank you being there, and we'll meet tomorrow. No Materia Medica session will be there today. From tomorrow, we'll start with Materia Medica sessions. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.